Has there ever been a Ferrari driver that didn't score any points in his entire career? This might not be a question you normally ask yourself, but at least you'll be finding out the answer today. We often celebrate the heroes who reach the podium, secure championships, and set up blistering lap times. But there's a different kind of fascination in exploring records that showcase the challenges and obstacles of being in F1. Let's not waste any time and dive in. As Michael Schumacher once said, in order to finish first you have to finish. Unfortunately for Andrea De Cesaris, Schumacher's words of wisdom were said a couple of years after he retired. While De Cesaris was a highly regarded driver, having raced with McLaren in 1981, he holds a record that will blow your mind. With 14 active years and 208 race starts in F1, De Cesaris only managed to finish in 60 of them. That's right, De Cesaris had an astonishing 148 DNFs in F1. To put it into perspective, Kevin Magnussen has appeared in 155 races. Now, imagine if he retired in 148 of those. That doesn't sound like a fun F1 career, does it? Now, you're probably wondering, how can he be highly regarded when there was a 75% chance for him to retire when starting a race? You see, De Cesaris was actually pretty quick. However, he was very accident-prone, and the reliability of F1 cars pre-2000 was not something you'd brag about if you were an engineer. Andrea managed 5 podiums in his 60 finishes, which is actually pretty decent when you think about it. On the topic of podiums, let's move on to our next unfortunate record. As I'm sure most of you know, the record of most starts without a podium belongs to a beloved driver, currently racing for Haas, and with each race weekend he makes the record even harder to reach for future drivers. I'm talking about who's yet to achieve a podium in F1 after 197 races. That's about as many races as Lewis Hamilton has podiums. Does this mean that Nico is a bad driver? Probably not. There are a lot of drivers without a podium in F1, but none have been fortunate or skilled enough to stay on the grid for as long as Nico has. And let's not forget the times that Nico came oh so close to getting that sweet podium. If you've watched Drive to Survive, you may remember the 2019 German Grand Prix. With Mercedes faltering and others making mistakes, Hülkenberg had a golden chance for a podium. He even briefly held second place behind Max Verstappen before sliding into the gravel and out of contention on lap 40. But there are a few other times that Nico came close that you may not know about. Nico's 39th race at the 2012 Brazilian Grand Prix saw him come tantalizingly close to victory. In wet conditions, he opted for a different strategy, briefly taking the lead. However, a collision with Lewis Hamilton and a subsequent drive-through penalty denied him the win. At the 2016 Belgian Grand Prix, Hülkenberg soared to second place after a first-lap melee. He even led behind the safety car but lost positions due to circumstances beyond his control. Ricciardo and Hamilton overtook him, relegating him to 4th, which remains his highest finish in subsequent Grand Prix races. And last but not least, the 2017 Azerbaijan Grand Prix in Baku, a race of unpredictability saw many of the frontrunners lose their positions. Hülkenberg was in contention for a podium until he misjudged a turn and damaged his suspension. While he's not necessarily a bad driver, it sure looks like the few chances he's encountered have been thrown away by none other than himself. A lovable character nonetheless. On that note, let's continue to the next unfortunate record, which is... If you've been racing in F1 for a couple of years, you'd at least expect to score some points along the way. Because otherwise, what are you actually doing on the grid? That's a good question for former F1 driver Luca Badoer, who holds the record for most race starts without a point. Luca came into F1 when he was 22 years old with the team Lola. He was expected to be a quick driver after his result in Formula 3000. However, the Lola car proved to be extremely uncompetitive, and he would struggle for the entire year. Luca would get 4 seasons in F1 racing for Lola, Minardi and Forti. But despite his determination and resilience, he never managed to secure a single championship point. It's a testament to the unforgiving nature of Formula 1 and the importance of having a competitive car. Luca's F1 career took a turn in the year 2000 when he became the test driver for Ferrari, where he has been said to be a great contributor to the Scuderia's early 2000 success. Another little trivia about him is that he has done more kilometers in a Ferrari than any other Italian ever. In 2009, Ferrari driver Felipe Massa was injured during qualifying for the Hungarian Grand Prix. The driver set to replace him was none other than the GOAT himself, Michael Schumacher. However, Schumacher had also suffered an injury in a motorbike race, which prevented him from making the comeback. Instead, Ferrari opted to give their test driver Luca Badoer a drive. At his 49th and 50th race start, Luca had the chance to finally score some sweet points. But did he manage to do so? Unfortunately not. The challenges of the 2009 European and Belgian Grand Prix proved to be too much for Badoer to overcome, and so he will for now be stuck in the record books with the record of most starts without scoring a point. But before we move on to the next record on our list, we just wanted to say that if you're enjoying the video so far, we'd greatly appreciate it if you subscribed and helped us bring you more content. Now, on to the next one. So far, we've covered two long F1 careers with Nico Hülkenberg and Luca Badoer, but on the other side of the spectrum, we have a gentleman by the name of Ernst Loof. Ernst Loof was not just a driver, he was also a German engineer. His sole F1 appearance occurred at the 1953 German Grand Prix, and it was a remarkable one, not for its duration, but for its brevity. He entered with his private company called Veritas, but his race was cut quite short. But how long did his race actually last? Half a race? 3 laps? 1 corner? The answer is, Ernst Loof's F1 career lasted a total of 2 meters. You're probably wondering how an F1 career can last for 2 meters, and I'll explain that in just a second. For starters, it's worth mentioning that F1 cars pre-2000 weren't especially reliable, and the further back you go, the worse it gets. As the 1953 German Grand Prix started, Ernst encountered a critical issue with the car. His Veritas RS with the Veritas Straight 6 engine faced a fuel pump issue triggered by the engine stalling, bringing the car to a stop after 2 meters. Imagine the anticipation, the excitement, and the nerves as Ernst Loof prepared to compete on one of the grandest stages in motorsport, only to see his F1 career end almost as quickly as it began. Enough on Ernst Loof, let's dive into the next record, which coincidentally is also about DNFs. While retiring after your first and only 2 meters in F1 seems bad, this next record may be even worse. A driver we've already covered in this video holds the record for most consecutive DNFs. And which driver do you think it is? Luca Badoer? Nico Hülkenberg? Actually, the driver with the most consecutive DNFs is Andrea De Cesaris. As a driver with 148 career DNFs, it might not come as a surprise that he had a purple patch of DNFs. Over the course of his 208 race career, De Cesaris became notorious for crashing, spinning, blowing up, and finding ways to make sure his car didn't finish the race. He was even fired during the 1985 season after the Italian flipped his car into a hill, with his boss Guy Ligier stating that they could no longer afford De Cesaris' repair bills. It's a miracle that even he survived for so long, considering the lack of safety measures in the 80s. Among the more interesting records he holds is that of consecutive DNFs, with a total of 22 between 1986 and 1988. Despite being classified in 2 of the 16 races of the 1987 season, De Cesaris never actually finished a race. Having run out of fuel on the final lap of the 1987 Belgian Grand Prix, De Cesaris still took 3rd place due to everyone else behind him being more than a lap down, further proving that he was quite a quick driver despite his ability to not finish races. When it comes to Formula 1 records, many seem unbreakable, standing the test of time for years. But what about some of the more fun records, such as the fastest top speed ever? If you want to know about that one, make sure to click on the video on the screen.